Hello, Live at Fivers. It's Peter McLaughlin, BlueSky Hypnosis. Today is Friday, Live at 5. Today we're going to be talking about dream analysis. This is something that I use with all of my clients in all of my one-on-one sessions. We might not necessarily do it every session, but depending on the person, depending on what they're going through, it could be every session, and it is definitely a feature. And we'll get into the reasons why I think this is important, what I look for, and how I help clients use the dreams to resolve issues in their life, as well as resolving the dreams themselves, like having nightmares, for example. And before we get into all of that, just standard disclaimer, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychologist, I am a hypnotist and a life coach. I've been doing this work for 16 years. Everything that I talk about comes from this practice and my experience in this practice working with thousands of clients. And, take everything I say with a grain of salt. If you have anything, of course, physically an issue, go see a doctor. If you have anything that's significant, that's, emotional, psychological, see your licensed mental health provider. I see myself as an adjunct to these people. A lot of my clients are people who've tried everything and nothing's worked, and so they come to me. Those are some of my favorite clients, because those kinds of people are definitely open to things that other people might not be open to when they're early in the process of trying to resolve some issue that they have. And by all means, ask questions if you have them. Put them in the comments and chat bar. It's what makes this interactive. If you have experiences you want to put in there, put them in there. And if there are aspects of dreams that you have or you've experienced in your life that are kind of perplexing or confusing, put it in there. I see this episode as a kind of a challenge, because it's a little bit harder to get the kind of feedback and forth that I would have, working live with a client, either live in person or on Zoom, for example. And I don't have the same background with you guys that I would have with a client that I work with all the time, where it's a little bit easier to understand how aspects of their dreams can fit in with what's going on in their present lifetime. So with that, let's kick this off and get started. Why is dream analysis important? That's one of the first questions that I put in my teaser. Oh, and I wanted to say one more thing, by the way, one more piece of business. My Facebook account was hacked. I lost control of my Facebook account. So if you see anything coming through Facebook from me or from BlueSky Hypnosis, until such time as maybe I get it back, and I'm not sure I will, it's not coming from me. It has nothing to do with me at this point, because, as I say, I completely lost control of it. Somebody hacked into it. If you know anybody who gets the notifications about these broadcasts from Facebook, and you can just tell them, hey, it's not going to be coming through that channel anymore. And lastly, if any of you have gone through this before, lost a Facebook account through hacking and was able to get it back, I'd appreciate hearing how you were able to do that at peter@blueskyhypnosis.com. So thanks for bearing with me on that one. So back to why is dream analysis important? Again, these are my opinions. Number one is it represents, in my opinion, communication with your subconscious mind and with other entities. So I think dreams have a variety of importance and a variety of meanings. They fall into different buckets. And your subconscious uses dreams to communicate with you, to try to tell you something. And I think because we are socialized to respond to language like I'm using with you right now, whether it's written or spoken or live or recorded or what have you, we're still kind of responding to that language. And a lot of our communication, I think you could argue, is left brain. It's kind of conscious mind, rational oriented. And when we receive communication in a different way, we're, I think, perplexed by it. We don't necessarily see it as communication. It's almost as if aliens are trying to communicate with us or something. It's a different language. And I would say that the language of the subconscious mind with respect to dreams is largely metaphorical. So I think a dream sort of falls into two buckets. One is literal communication, and that would be presenting you with something, almost like a movie, about something that happened in the past. It could have been earlier in your present life. It even could have been something about a past life. The most common dreams that I run into with my clients would be something that I would say is a metaphorical communication. It's almost as if you created a painting, a work of art, and it has meaning embedded in it, but it's not like you're just writing out the words in prose as though you were typing an email to someone. You could also think of it as some of the greatest filmmakers embed metaphorical messages or meaning inside of the film that's not designed to be picked up, if you will, by your conscious mind. I mean, people who dive deep into films and can analyze them really well are able to extract the conscious meaning or the meaning that can be understood by our conscious mind. But these great filmmakers, it's largely designed to impact your subconscious mind. And it's done through metaphor. And I think that the weirdest dreams, in my experience with clients, when it's broken down into, okay, so what does this mean metaphorically? It all begins to make a lot more sense. Okay, so the purpose of dreams, we've talked about that. I said that I believe that that's communication from your subconscious mind and from other entities. When I say other entities, what do I mean by that? Okay, so I mean spiritual entities. This could be, for example, entities that have attached themselves to you. And I've talked about this in other broadcasts, so I won't go super deep into this, but the principle is thus: you have a physical body and you have a non-physical component of you. You might call that a soul or a spirit. When the physical body dies, the soul or the spirit is supposed to go, let's call that, into the light, heaven, Valhalla, Eden, whatever. But it doesn't have to go into the light because we live in a free will universe. And that energetic component of a human being has the ability, under certain circumstances, to attach itself to the energy/body of a person who still has a body. When this happens, that energetic entity brings with it its preferences, its fears, its desires, its emotions, and so on. And when you're asleep, this entity could be influencing the content of your dreams. And there have been clients that I have worked with who have suffered from frequent nightmares. And when we move the spiritual entity, or entities, plural, out of them, nightmares go away. I'm not saying that's the only cause of nightmares. I am just saying that this is one of the causes that I have found over the years of what can be influencing a dream. Now, after the last broadcast that I did last Friday, I had, and I just want to make sure I get the right one put up here. Here we go. Seek Wisdom had shared a dream that he or she, I'm not really sure, was having. And I'm just going to say, so Seek Wisdom says, "Hi, I'd like to share my dreams. Well, they are not all the same, but an interesting thing is that my maternal grandmother is present in 99% of the time. It's kind of crazy. This is happening for the past 25 years. In my dreams, she smiles, she makes jokes, and I tell her, I knew you were alive. Even when I don't see her in my dream, I know she is there. I feel her presence in the next room." So this is definitely something that I think most of us have experienced, albeit, unlike Seek Wisdom, not in every single dream, and maybe not for 25 years. But oftentimes, in my experience with my clients, and again, over 16 years, most of them will say that after someone that they were very close to, somebody that they loved, died, they got some kind of communication from that person who died. The most common form of communication is in a dream. So they have a dream that the person is alive. The person that died is communicating with the client in the dream, usually telling them, hey, everything is cool. I'm good. I'm happy where I am. Everything is good. And then the client wakes up from the dream and they're like, oh my God, it felt so real. I felt like, my uncle was right there with me. And if I can extrapolate from my clients over the past 16 years, I would suggest that most of us especially if we're of a certain age and we have lost people close to us, have had experiences like that. And it doesn't just have to be a human being you loved. It could be an animal, for example. So without knowing Seek Wisdom, I don't know whether Seek Wisdom is a he or a she, for example. I would say that Seek Wisdom's grandmother really is coming and communicating. So that would be an example of another entity. Could be the cause or a component of a dream. Now, it could be from the negative side. That could be like that spiritual entity I was talking about that might attach to you in a negative way through a low vibratory state, like maybe you had a drinking problem, and when this happened, you got a bunch of entities that attach to you. Or it could be from this positive side where a deceased loved one is coming to you to tell you everything is okay. And in the case of Seek Wisdom, because it's happened so often over the past 25 years, my first thought would be that and I'm just gonna refer to Seek Wisdom as she. I apologize if it's he, but it's just easier to do it that way. If her grandmother, could be her spirit guide. So it might not just have been her grandmother physically in this lifetime, but it could also be that her grandmother is serving this role as her spirit guide to guide her through this lifetime. And if I were working with Seek Wisdom, I would want to have Seek Wisdom connect with her grandmother in hypnosis. Now, in hypnosis, unlike in sleep, unless it's a lucid dream, the conscious mind is not entirely going away. In other words, a person doesn't become unconscious when you're doing hypnosis. And unless you make suggestions that they cannot remember something or they go to a very, very, very deep state of hypnosis, the conscious mind remains alert and aware. And so in hypnosis, connected with her grandmother, I would have her ask her grandmother, what is the reason that you keep coming to me? Are you worried about me? Are you my spirit guide? Are you another kind of guide for me? Are you wanting me to remember something that I haven't remembered? Are you wanting to help me through the twists and the turns and the ups and the downs of this lifetime? In other words, why are you coming? Because it may be that Seek Wisdom hasn't completely understood why her grandmother continues to appear. Right? There has to be a reason. And that seems to me to be, this wonderful opportunity to seize that and to really understand if her grandmother wants her to learn something important or wants to guide her somewhere. Or maybe, because I've seen this before too, maybe there's something that Seek Wisdom can do for her grandmother. So I used to think that people who were deceased, that we could ask them to intercede on our behalf, that there were things that they could do for us. I am now of the opinion that it's more the other way around. Because we have a physical body, it seems like, and again, just my experience, that we have a bit more agency. That in my experience, working with clients, we've been able to resolve issues from their lineage, from their ancestral lineage, from people who died with things that were unresolved. We working in tandem with the client and the client's spiritual guidance, have been able to heal things from some of these people. And sometimes, a deceased relative will come, and it's like they're, Seek Wisdom is describing that they're smiling, they're happy, they're joyful, but there's something there that they need, and they either haven't been able to ask for it or the client hasn't really understood. And when we are able to probe deeper, again, using the client's spiritual guidance, we find out, wow, this relative is still holding on to some kind of pain that was unresolved, and we can help them resolve that. So hopefully that all makes sense to you guys. There's one more thing I wanted to say too before I dive in, see who's here and see what people are commenting on, because I see a bunch of comments popping through, which always excites me. I love this. Is I want to share with you a dream that was recurring. Now, the way that I see, a one-off dream versus a dream that recurs is kind of like somebody coming and knocking on your door. They're expecting you to come answer the door. Now, if you come answer the door right away, they come right in, 1, 2, 3. But if you don't answer the door and they know you're home and they really want to get your attention, they knock again. Then they knock louder. Then they start looking in through the windows. Then they ring the doorbell. Then they're yelling from the outside. And I think a recurring dream is kind of like that. It's like we are not getting the message. And the recurrence of the dream is just this, frustration from the subconscious mind or from the other entities to answer the door already. Put on your slippers, come downstairs, answer the door. I got to talk to you. Now, the dream that I had many, many years ago now, when I was in a previous relationship, my wife and I have been married for 25 years. And so this was going back, longer than that, was that I was continually had this dream where I was in a house, didn't know really what house it was, and it was dark in the house, and I kept walking around and turning on lights, and the light bulbs would go on, and I don't know if you've ever seen kind of a faulty light bulb where it doesn't fully illuminate, so if it's a 60 watt or 60 watt equivalent bulb, you don't get 60 watts, you get like 5 watts. And every light in the house was like that. It was just so dim, and I was so frustrated because I kept turning on all the switches, checking to see that they were on, and there just wasn't enough light. I couldn't see. And this is long before I got into this work. And so I'd wake up in the morning, and like a lot of people just kind of brush that aside, that dream. But what I realized kind of after the fact was that after I got out of that relationship, the dream stopped happening. Now, my main issue in that particular relationship was it had more than gotten to the point where we, in quotation marks, should have gotten married. And I remembered thinking to myself the whole time, I really don't want to do this. I don't want to get married. And I thought, I'm just not the right person to get married. I'm not cut out for that. And everything on paper looks good, but my heart's not in it. What's going on? What's going on? So I think in retrospect, what that dream was a metaphorical representation of you can't see clearly, that something is off. You're turning on the switches and the light isn't going on fully and you can't see clearly. And I think that was related to something being off. Something wasn't quite right. I was trying to convince myself to do something that my heart really didn't want to do. And I think my subconscious, through that dream, was trying to communicate a message to me of you need to see this more clearly or something isn't quite right. When you turn it on, it's not as bright as you really want it to be. You're not feeling the fullness in your heart that you really want to feel. And I just wasn't equipped at the time to dive deeper into the message of that dream. I was like a lot of people, and I just thought, a dream is just this kind of throwaway thing that happens while you're sleeping. It really has no meaning, and you can just push it away. And now I believe that everything in life, everything that happens to you, every experience you have, particularly the things that cause pain, and it's certainly dreams, they all have a meaning. And the other thing that I've realized is that when you're the one trying to figure out the dream, it's a little bit harder. When you can talk to a friend, or if you want to, work with a person like me, seeing it from the outside, it makes way more sense. So every morning, my wife and I will say, "Did you dream last night?" "Yeah." "What was your dream?" And we'll each talk about it. And it's usually easier for the other person to interpret what the dream means than the person who had that experience. There's something about being so close to it. All right, let's see who is here and what comments and questions we have. All right, so Cookie Thieves, hey, good to see you back here, Cookie Thieves. Glad to see your name here. Yeah, Cookie Thieves says that they got hacked as well. It sucks. AJ, hello, good to see you too, AJ. And AJ also says, are these metaphors always local, or picked with reference to person, religion, culture, etc.? So my answer to that would be generally yes, because the subconscious, I think, is communicating to us through our frame of reference. And that frame of reference clearly would have to do with all of the attributes that you mentioned. Now, What could be different is that if you're having communication through another entity, particularly if you have spiritual entities that are attached to you, and those entities are somehow creating or influencing the dream, what is their frame of reference? And then the other one would be if you're having a dream that pertains to a past life that you led. So if in this lifetime you're, a Caucasian Christian born in the United States, and in a past lifetime, let's say that you were born in Asia, and this was 500 years ago, then I think it might be through the frame of reference of what happened in that past lifetime. So again, I think there are certain rules, if you will, or principles that I have learned to follow. But I always stay flexible to this could be a past lifetime. This could be a spiritual entity attachment of some kind. This could be a deceased relative, for example, that's communicating with you. It could be a spirit guide communicating with you through a dream. And the whole thing about a metaphor. So one of the first things that I do with all of my clients is we just kind of do a screening early in the session to figure out if they have any kind of spiritual entity attached to them. If they do, we move that out so we can take that off the table as a factor. When I'm presented with, and this is probably part of like how you would go about analyzing a dream, the most valuable thing for me is that when a client presents a dream to me, and let's just take a really weird one, right? Like there's all of these different crazy things that are happening. I immediately break it down. Like sometimes I get it right away, I think, what it means or how I interpret it. But much of the time, I don't understand it immediately. And so I want to break it down into its themes. So is there a theme of freedom or imprisonment? Is there a theme of fear? Is there a theme of being trapped? Is there a theme of relationship? If I can nail down the themes, and a lot of times a client will give me, say, like 2 dreams, and I can see between those 2 dreams, hey, there are the same themes in dream number 1 as exist in dream number 2. And then we go back to that person's present life, and we're like, okay, how does this thing about being trapped or wanting to be free pertain to your present lifetime, for example? And it's amazing how these things then start to fit in perfectly with what they're dealing with right now. And certainly with the recurring dreams, when we get to the root cause of what the message is that's being communicated, and the client internalizes that message and maybe even makes changes in their life, the recurring dream goes away. All right. Here is Nadine. Nadine says, hello. What if these entities are our ancestors, dead family members, who are trying to help us with these dreams, to help us even with nightmares? And then Nadine goes on to say, I get different smells feeling love. And then she says, you have a good heart, have a great day. Well, you have a good day too. So that's a really great question. And if a deceased relative is an entity or is continuing to come back to you, one possibility is that they're all good and they're serving as some kind of guide for you. That's why I suggested that Seek Wisdom's grandmother might actually be a spirit guide. The other possibility is that they have unfinished business. They are still in pain and they're looking to you for help. Now, if that's the case, then they would be behaving kind of like a spiritual entity attachment. If that's the case, then what we have to do is we have to help that individual, that being, we have to help them move into the light. Now, if they are a beloved relative and they have unfinished business, we can help them finish that business. That business usually has to do with some form of forgiveness. In other words, they are probably still on this plane because they feel guilt for something that they did or they didn't do. We want to help them resolve that guilt. Once they've resolved that guilt, they will be much happier to move off into the light, and now they won't be attached to you anymore. Now, there's a difference between having an entity attached to you. Let's say it's somebody that you love, and you're thinking, I don't want to let them go because I love them and I'll miss them. At least I have them coming in my dreams. Well, when they're attached to you, it's kind of like they're living in your spare bedroom, which is fine for a few nights, but not year after year after year. There's nothing wrong with have them living in their own home or their own apartment, and when you choose to, then you get together. This is the difference. We don't want them attached to you through any form of negativity. We only want them connected to you through positivity, love, compassion, joy, freedom, and those sorts of things. So, awesome question. I hope I answered that for you. If I didn't, please ask a follow-up question in the comment section. Okay. Look at this, BlueSky. Cool. I had a dream, or rather a nightmare. I saw in my dream that a person that I know was, I think that means attempting suicide. Just by calling her on time, I saved her life. That was just, I've got to put that one back up. That was just a crazy thing. That was the most crazy thing that ever happened to me. That is amazing. Okay, so BlueSky had a dream, and I guess we could expand this to, it sounds like some kind of a premonition. So BlueSky had a dream that turned out to be a premonition that a friend was going to commit suicide. And BlueSky called up his or her friend and says that they saved the friend's life because the friend was about to commit suicide. So this is a perfect segue into what is reality and how does that apply to dreams. So I have come to the conclusion over many years of doing this work that we don't really understand, all the levels of reality. We basically think there is one level of reality. And everything, so we'll call this container, everything that's inside this container is reality, and that anything outside the container is not reality. And I don't mean to say that this is like a planet and the space is out there. Of course, we can recognize that space is reality. No, I'm just conceptualizing this concept that this is a container, everything inside the container is reality, and anything outside the container is fiction. And I say there are different layers of reality. So right now, inside this little container is, let's call the 5 sense reality. What you can see, what you can hear, taste, touch, and smell. But we know for a fact from science that reality goes beyond our 5 senses. And just because we can't access it with one of our 5 senses doesn't mean that it's simply fiction or fake or not real. You can see things under a microscope you can't see with these eyes. And now you're like, oh, I guess microorganisms are real because I developed a tool to see them. There's a universe, multiple universes maybe, of reality that we're not aware of. And I think that things we are aware of, that we classify as fake, fiction, whatever, not real, actually are real. You know, when you imagine going on vacation to Hawaii, and then you pick up the phone and you go online and you type in flights to Hawaii, hotels, and on and on and on, and then a couple months later, you find yourself there in Hawaii. It was real when you imagined it. Like, imagination precedes everything. It precedes turning right when you're driving your car on Elm Street. It's the part of us, the creative part of us, that composes a symphony right inside the head. The person hears the melody and then they write it out. I mean, it's real the moment a person conceives of it. You don't have to physically move your body, in my opinion, to create or even engage in different layers of reality. So I would say seek wisdom that her grandmother coming to her is real. It's just occurring on a different layer of reality. Physics says that energy can't be created or destroyed. I don't think when a person dies that their essence dies. I don't think their soul or their spirit dies. I think their body dies. And that body turns itself, recycles itself into different kinds of energy. The soul or the spirit continues on, and later it enters another body. But we feel like the person's gone because we can't access them with our 5 physical senses. Again, this inside this tiny little realm, if you will, of reality. Is the stuff inside that little container real? Yeah, but so is the stuff outside of it. And the way you and I can perceive each other is through our 5 physical senses. But if I can't perceive you with my 5 physical senses, it doesn't mean you don't exist. It just means I can't perceive you with these puny little senses. So, in my opinion, Seek Wisdom's grandmother has not ceased to exist, and that dreams are a vehicle for connecting with each other because you're not trying to use your 5 physical senses. So hopefully that sort of makes sense. And what the hell do we know about things like a premonition? How did BlueSky have that experience? Unless there are these different layers of reality. Or it's a total coincidence that BlueSky happened to have a dream about somebody trying to commit suicide, calls on this close friend, and the friend was about to commit suicide. I mean, that beggars the imagination. And with this concept, I keep coming back to this little container. Where is that there? This quote that I love from Hamlet, Shakespeare's Hamlet. I will bind myself inside a walnut shell and call myself master of all I survey. It's this amazing quote about ignorance. I'm going to live inside this little box and say, yeah, I can describe everything inside this box, and I know exactly what happens in this box, and I control everything that happens inside this box. But there's a whole world beyond the box. There's a whole universe beyond the world. And I think it takes a degree of humility to begin to entertain the concept that we don't know everything, and that physics is correct when it says that energy can't be created or destroyed. It just changes its shape or its form. And that anything that feels real to us is real because it's creating real responses in our body. I mean, I even think that a movie has a kind of life to it because when you engage with the movie, when you watch the movie, your body can actually have real reactions to the film. You can start crying, you can get angry, you can have adrenaline and cortisol pumping through your bloodstream, your heartbeat is elevated, your vascular system constricts. And this is something else I wanted to talk about today, or I thought maybe we would get to, which is I've had clients who've had scenes from horror movies kind of stick inside of them. And they go into that scene in a horror movie in a dream. It's almost as if that scene from that movie took on a life of its own inside the person and behaved almost like a spiritual entity attaching to them. And we had to actually resolve it to clear out that scene from the movie. And when we did that, they didn't have that dream anymore. So hopefully that all makes sense. I know it's a little esoteric, but I think you get the point. All right, let's see what else we have here. Thanks, BlueSky. I really appreciate you sharing that with us. Bewusset Sign says, what can you tell us about sleep paralysis? What kind of dream is this? One of the tools that I use with clients, and you guys are going to hear me talking about this in every broadcast because I feel like it's almost like a diagnostic tool for these kinds of subjects, is a pendulum. If you haven't figured out how to use a pendulum yet, go to my website, my YouTube site, which is BlueSky Hypnosis, and type in pendulum in the search bar on my channel. And there'll be a video there teaching you how to use a pendulum. You can use this pendulum to in terms of today as ways of analyzing your own dreams, what the dream actually means. So in terms of sleep paralysis, this can be an entity that's attached to you. Check that. I have another video that I just made recently that teaches you how to use a pendulum, and then teaches you how to determine if you have an entity attached to you, and if you do, how to remove it. So I just published that, I don't know, like 4 weeks ago or something, 5 weeks ago. So paralysis could be an entity is paralyzing you. That is a possibility. That would be the first thing that I would want to rule out. The second thing that I would consider is this some message of being helpless? Is it some kind of gift that you have, an ability to lucid dream, for example? Is it something that has to do with being physically restrained earlier in your present life, or physically restrained in a past life? Were you paralyzed in a past life from some kind of an accident or an injury? These are all things that, if you were my client, I would want to be exploring with you to find out what is the genesis, what is the reason why you're having this. And the same phenomenon could occur in 3 different people, and you could have 3 different reasons for it. I think we all want, what is the one meaning for I'm naked in a dream? There may not just be one reason. There could be multiple reasons. And I think it's important to explore those. So for you, I would suggest, take some of the ideas that I said, learn how to use a pendulum by going to my YouTube channel, BlueSky Hypnosis. Subscribe if you haven't. And then use the pendulum to determine what is the meaning of the sleep paralysis. And then come back here if you're willing and tell us what you found. Okay, hopefully that was helpful for you. Thanks for asking the question. Here is Cookie Thieves. Cookie Thieves says, I've had really weird and bad dreams that I've woken up crying. How do I make these bad dreams go away? Also, I would love to become your client, but it costs too much money. I need help. Okay, so let us talk about that question you asked, which is, you wake up crying. It sounds like it happens in a recurring fashion. How do you make this go away? It's kind of like if you had, I don't know, pain in a certain part of your body, and you naturally ask the question you're asking, which is, how do I make this pain go away? Well, just deadening the pain doesn't really permanently make it go away. It only temporarily makes it go away. The way you'd make pain go away in your body, and pain can be a little tricky, but you'd first look for some kind of an organic cause. Like if you had, I don't know, a foreign object, a huge splinter sticking out, sticking in your body at that place, I guess the first thing you'd find that, and then you'd want to remove that object because that might make the pain go away. If you had a broken bone, you'd want to set the break and then, put a cast on it, immobilize it, and then after the cast came off, pain might be gone. I say it's the same thing with, and take everything I say with a grain of salt, right? With your emotion, psycho-emotional spiritual life. And your dreams are part of your psycho-emotional spiritual life. So there's something painful that you are experiencing in the dreams when you wake up crying. It sounds like you don't remember what's happening. So it would be, in my opinion, if we were working together, and we'll talk about that in a second, what would you have to do? Well, we would have to figure out what's actually happening in those dreams. Like, are you going back to something that happened to you earlier in your present lifetime? Like, it could be the passing of somebody that you loved, and that hasn't been resolved. It could be something that happened when you were an infant or in your mother's womb. It could be something that you heard and it never kind of got resolved. Maybe you heard this when you were 4 years old and it didn't get resolved. Maybe this is something that happened in a past lifetime and it hasn't been resolved. So step number 1, just kind of like if something was going on with your arm, we would want to understand what's going on there. What are you dreaming about that is causing you to wake up in tears? Step number 2 would be to resolve it. So if it's something that happened in a past lifetime, we would hypnotically regress you to that past lifetime, to that moment of trauma, and we would resolve it where it lives. By regressing you to that moment of trauma, we would understand what happened. And that's what would then let us know what we would have to do in order to heal it. If it happened earlier in this lifetime, same kind of idea, right? Same sort of thing. Once that root cause is healed, you're not going to be waking up crying anymore. It sounds fantastical, especially if this has been happening to you for a long time, but it's no more fantastical than if there was a splinter, in your toe, and we found it and we pulled it out, and that could hurt. After a short period of time, a couple of days, that wound would now be able to heal. And once it did, when you walked, you wouldn't feel pain in your toe anymore. That's how I see this. Now, with respect to not being able to work with me because of the cost and everything, I totally get that. With some clients, I do make arrangements if they're not able to pay the full price, but they can pay, something lower. Oftentimes, we'll be able to make arrangements depending on what my schedule looks like. So, always feel free to send me an email, ask me a question. Maybe I can point you in the direction of a resource. I do have free 20-minute consultation calls. And sometimes people just have a 20-minute call with me. They don't pay anything. And we're able to, maybe come up with a few suggestions. Not perfect, but it's something. So thank you for asking that question. And I hope it's helpful for you. Okay. Here is, what time is it? 5. Okay. Ananda. In my dream, I was asking myself if I'm dreaming or not, and was surprised how this happens. Is it my dream or someone else's dream? It sounds like it's a lucid dream that you're having. And you might want to research lucid dreams. And then to the second part of your question, is it your dream or someone else's? That would be sort of on this whole entity attachment thing. And I would refer you back to this track that I made, as I said, 4 to 6 weeks ago, something like that, about removing spiritual entities. It describes what they are. It teaches you how to use a pendulum. It teaches you how to determine whether you have an entity attachment. And then if you do, it helps you remove them. So if it's someone else's dream, my interpretation of that would be you have a spiritual entity or entities plural attached to you. And if that's the case, you want to remove them. And if that's all true, then this wouldn't happen anymore, I don't think. And also look into lucid dreams. That's the other thing that I would have, encourage you to look into, because that sounds like a lucid dream. All right. Thanks for asking the question, Ananda. Here's M.A. M.A. says, my dreams always have a common theme of me struggling. If I'm trying to text in the dream, I can't seem to complete the text. If I'm trying to unlock a door, I cannot get it unlocked. Continued. If I'm trying to go somewhere, I keep getting sidetracked or lost. Interesting that as I type it out, I'm laughing as it appears to mirror my life. Yeah, yes. And your subconscious is trying to bring this phenomenon to your attention so that you will resolve it. In the same way, and I've done some episodes of Friday Live on pain. What is the purpose of pain? The purpose of pain is it's communication. When you wake up in the morning and your big toe hurts, it's telling you, sit down on the side of the bed. Put your foot on your other knee and look at your toe. Look at it. See if you can see a splinter in there. See if you can see an ingrown toenail. The pain is designed to get your attention so that you will take action. And frustrating dreams, fearful dreams, like that frustrating dream I had of turning all the lights on and I still can't see, are kind of like pain. It's a clarion call to us to pay attention, to do something. So in your case, MA, what is the underlying reason why you keep getting stopped? Do you have entities attached to you and they don't want you to move forward? Are you subconsciously afraid of moving forward? Because if you do, maybe you'll enter into a fearful place. Maybe something really bad happened earlier in this life or in a past life when you were moving forward, making progress. And part of you doesn't want that to happen again. And so it blocks you, it stops you, boom, 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 boom. But we have to figure out what is blocking you. And the dreams are this powerful communication of saying, kind of like pain, here's this, ouch, ouch, fix this, get to the root of this, take action. So thank you for sharing this, especially like you said, as you typed it out, you started laughing because you're like, this mirrors my life. This is another great example of dreams are not throwaway. Nothing, in my opinion, nothing is throwaway. Everything has meaning. Everything has purpose. Nothing is wasted. And our job, and I think advancing spiritually, if it means anything, in my opinion, would be we pay attention right away. We don't let something like my dream go on for years and years and years, and I just keep ignoring it any more than that you would want to ignore any kind of pain, physical pain or emotional or psychological or spiritual pain. It's a literally, and it's funny that its dreams happen in sleep. It's a wake-up call. And I printed out this quote from Shakespeare just because I used to be an actor and I love Shakespeare. And he said, "We are such stuff as dreams are made on, and our little life is rounded with a sleep." We are such stuff as dreams are made on, and our little life is rounded with a sleep. And, people have speculated since time immemorial on the meaning of dreams. There have been cultures that believed that dreams were more important than what happens in your waking life. There are loads of philosophers and shamans and medicine women and men and people in the Middle Ages that would say that dreams, kind of like I'm saying, are just another form of reality. And that our lives, others say, are a dream. The dream of being this kind of person. I say it's playing a character. I'm playing a character. And I've been playing it for so long, I've forgotten it's a character. I was born into a certain family at a certain time. They taught me certain things. I had certain experiences, and that all kind of shaped and molded my what? We call it a personality. What's a personality? What's the etymology of that word? It's the masks that the Greeks wore in theater 2,000 years ago. That's the person. That's the personality. And so like an actor, we're all playing a role. We're all playing a part. And there are certain things like with MA, where MA is blocked. Well, that's part of MA's character in a way. And so part of the unwinding, the understanding what the root cause is and healing the root cause is informing the actor that part of the character, you can drop that. You can let that go. You can take on a different part of the character. So I have a child who's an athlete playing at a pretty high level, and there are lots of things that are really working on her behalf, physically and emotionally and mentally and spiritually. But there are certain things that have held her back, and there are root causes for that, and we've resolved those root causes. And there's this other concept of taking on a persona, like that mask that the Greeks wore, when you step out onto the field, when you step out onto the court. That this part of your character doesn't have those limitations. This part of your character has these strengths. And here are all the reasons why those strengths work for you and work for your teammates. So in the way that you put on your uniform, you put on your clothes, in a sense, like an actor putting on their costume, you're stepping into a character when this happens. And if you have trouble public speaking, for example, we'd want to find the root cause, what created this fear in the first place. And I'm kind of speeding through this. And we'd also want to have you step into a slightly different character that has this ability to speak, eloquently to hundreds and thousands of people, and have you feel what that's like before you actually stand behind the lectern or get up onto the stage. All right. All right. We've got about 8 more minutes, and I definitely want to engage with some more of you guys before we come to our time. And I just want to briefly give a little overview of next week. So next Friday, live at 5, which is the 9th, we're going to be talking about resolving social anxiety and using hypnosis, using NLP, using reframing to deal with that. This is such a huge problem these days, and with the advent of COVID and people wearing masks and not going into public, it's in my opinion, it's just kind of made things worse. And a lot of my clients have struggled with this sort of thing, and I just think it's a really timely topic with which to take on. So we're going to be dealing with that next Friday live at 5. Hope you join. All right, let's see what else we have here. Just going to scroll down and see if there's somebody that I haven't engaged with yet. Here's Mary Jane. You are a gift to those seeking help that have been failed by others. I appreciate you beyond the realm of this. Wow. Thank you so much, Mary Jane. I really appreciate that. Thank you for your support, and thanks for being here. And I hope you come back. Here is Ivana. What does it mean when you have the same dream repeatedly? Okay, so I'll go over this quickly because I did mention it a little bit earlier in the broadcast. You may have tuned in later. To me, it's like, ringing somebody's doorbell. You really have to talk to them. When the dream keeps recurring, it means you're not getting the message. You're not coming down and answering the door. And so the person, bang, 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 they knock harder and harder and harder and more urgently. So if that dream is recurring, it just means that there's a powerful underlying message that you are not getting. You're not understanding it. And so a recurring dream to me is very important, that like if we were working together, that we understand exactly why you're having that dream. And I can say that once, either through things that happen in your life, you kind of inadvertently resolve that recurring dream, kind of like in my life when I didn't understand what was going on and I finally ended one relationship, the recurring dream ended at the same time. Or you absorb the message while you're getting the dreams, you act on that, and then the dream goes away. Okay, and it's the same thing with nightmares. People talk about, they just keep having nightmares constantly. The most important thing to check if you're having lots of nightmares is, do you have spiritual entities attached to you? And people who've had a drinking problem, drinking alcohol, they've had a drug problem, they watch a lot of horror movies, these are people that tend to have spiritual entities attached to them. And when you move those entities out, almost always the nightmare goes away. And if it doesn't, it means that it has something to do with a trauma that happened in the past. And when you resolve the trauma, the nightmare goes away, right? There's no need to have pain if you resolve the underlying reason for the pain being there. All right, thank you for that, Ivana. Appreciate it. Good to see you here. Here is Dolores, who says, I sometimes have a dream of an old apartment I once lived in, and all of a sudden I find another room way in the back of the apartment. And I am so stupefied that I didn't know the room was there. Okay, so my crack at that one is there are aspects of you that you're not aware of. You have gifts, you have capabilities that you have not tapped into yet. The other possible meaning of this is there's a quote, I think, from the Bible, my father's house has many mansions, or something like my father's house has many rooms, or my father's house has many mansions. So there are aspects of the physical realm we don't totally understand. Like, we don't understand Antarctica. We don't understand undersea very well. We don't understand space beyond like 20 miles above the Earth. there are all of these different realms. So it could be something about an understanding that you are just coming to, or that you need to come to, probably that, especially if it's recurring. And it could be about realms that you're not aware of, because a realm is, a physical manifestation of a realm could be like a room. A hidden room could be like, oh my God, I didn't realize that there was a fifth dimension. Or that there's this thing called spirituality, or that we live in past lifetimes, or I can communicate with my spirit guides, or a whole host of other things, and or aspects about you that you need to discover that you have not. Or maybe there's something about your past that got covered up that is important for you to go back to. And so you could use that pendulum I was talking about earlier to start to pinpoint what is the meaning of having this dream. But this would be an example, in my opinion, of a metaphor, right? An additional room you never knew about in a house or an apartment you used to live in that you discover. So cool. Thanks so much, Dolores. I really appreciate that. Here is Mickey or Mikey Lane. I have lucid dreams. I can control my dreams while in it, like I'm in my body, but also observing at the same time. I make myself wake up, but then go right back to the same spot. Any thoughts on this? Yeah, I kind of see this as a gift. The ability to be aware that you're dreaming while you're dreaming. And my first thought on this would be to determine if this is a gift. So if you were using a pendulum, it would be like, do I have a spiritual gift? Yes. Does the spiritual gift pertain to my ability to lucid dream? Yes. Can I travel in my dreams? Answer is probably going to be yes. And then it becomes like remote viewing. Like you might have the ability to be a remote viewer. That's something you might want to research. The ability to go to another part of the planet, to go to different planets and see what's going on there. Maybe you have the ability to go back in time. Maybe you have the ability to go forward in time through this ability of lucid dreaming. But it's likely that you have not fully plumbed the depths of this if it is a gift, and it sounds to me like it's a gift. So those are my thoughts. I hope that's helpful. I can't say that I'm an expert on lucid dreaming. I have never personally done lucid dreaming, but I do think it's something that most people have the ability to do if they train themselves. And it sounds like without training, you already had it. So it sounds like a gift. All right, let's take one more. And thanks for that, Mikey Lane. I just want to see if there's anyone else here that, let's see. Here is Annabelle says, hi from Uruguay. Oh, wow. Hi to you too. Thanks for being here. Oh, this is interesting. Here is Andrea. Andrea says, what does having the same dream as your partner on the same night mean? I think this is, again, these different levels of reality. And I think that we communicate beyond just our physical voice and our gestures and touch. I think there is this ability that we have through the power of our thoughts, our intentions, and our emotions to influence and even communicate with other people. So, has this happened to you and your partner more than once? Is it only one time? Does it happen multiple times? I guess one of the first things would be the question is, how are the two of you connected? Are you soulmates? Are you twin flames? Are you working together in this lifetime on a spiritual mission of some kind? Could you program yourselves to have the same dream on the same night? Like these are very, very interesting, like absolutely fascinating. And I can't sit here and pretend that I have the answers to this. But what I do when I work with people is through different techniques, through different ways of thinking about these issues to get to the root cause of it. So I would say, again, for you, use your pendulum and say, are we communicating psychically? Is the same dream, are we traveling? Are we both traveling when we sleep? And are we traveling to the same place? Is the dream about a past lifetime? Is the dream about the life between lives, before we're born and after we die? Is the dream trying to communicate a very specific message to both of us simultaneously? Is the dream being given to us by a spiritual entity, like spirit guide, our higher selves? And when you get hits on any of those, you want to just dive a little bit deeper into the meaning of all that. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us. It's super cool. And there are definitely stories of people that separately go into the same past lifetime, which sounds very similar to me. They're remote from each other. They both do past lifetimes. They didn't talk about it ahead of time, and they go to the same past lifetime, and they come back, compare notes, and they're like very similar. Fascinating. I just want to take this as the last question for today. Rio7 says, "Oh my God, my pendulum is acting, I think, weird. The last week, I feel something pulling down on it. What is that? Yikes." I would ask the pendulum, is someone other than me controlling or attempting to control this pendulum? If you get a yes to that, then you could ask, is this other entity doing this for my highest and greatest good? My suspicion is you'll probably get a no to that. If that's the case, then proceed along the path of removing spiritual entities. Again, I've got that video that I published about 4 to 6 weeks ago that just takes you right through the whole process of removing spiritual entities. If that's the case, let us know, and then tell us if it caused the pendulum now to behave in a normal fashion, one you would expect. So with that, I'm gonna ask you guys if you wanna return next Friday live at 5 for the Resolving Social Anxiety. I think it's gonna be a really cool episode. I think, as I said, a lot of people are dealing with that these days. Thank you all for your questions and for your comments. I'm sorry I couldn't get to all of them, but it's a great sign that people are excited about this and making so many great comments and asking such interesting questions. It always takes us in new directions. It gets me thinking about things that I wouldn't otherwise have been thinking about, certainly wouldn't have been talking about. So I really appreciate your input more than you can imagine. And hope you have an awesome weekend and look forward to seeing you next Friday right back here live at 5. Take care.